I'm live. Hello, welcome. I'm going to take another minute or two before I dive in. So, in the meantime, for those of you who are here, if you could just leave a comment in the chat to let me know that you can hear me, that would be very much appreciated. And I'll wait another minute and then I will get started. It has been so long since I've done a live stream, and I miss doing this and seeing who's around and where you're from. Hello. Okay, we're gonna do another minute. So in the meantime, let's see who's around on this Wednesday morning. Hello, Miss Sherry from New Jersey. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Bonnie. Ivana, those bow ties, those bows are beautiful. Hi, Sherry. Adriana. Hello, Zelda in Miami. Andres, I am on my way to Boston in just a little bit. In fact, I will be doing this live stream briefly because I have to head out to the airport very shortly. So that's hi to Boston from me, and Berlin, Germany, New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't get enough love. Hello. Oh, thank you so much, Lydia. North Carolina. We have very beloved friends in North Carolina. And Bonnie. Hi to Boston and Frankfurt. So, this is going to be a very short, hopefully, live stream where I explain what I know about this crazy story that's all over the news about the Chabad tunnels. So, I've been getting quite a few comments on my YouTube channel with people asking about it. The way it works if you run a YouTube channel is when you log in, you see all the comments that came in, oftentimes in old videos. So it might not be clear to the viewer that I will sometimes get comments on the oldest videos with people making the most absurd comments, and those will get sort of lost. No one else will see it except me. And I've gotten quite a bunch of those this morning about the crazy Chabad tunnel story. So, what is the crazy Chabad tunnel story? If you haven't heard of it, here is the summary as far as I can summarize it. In Chabad in Crown Heights, there is the extremely iconic and important synagogue, which is dubbed 770 for its address on 770 Eastern Parkway. And the synagogue, a couple of months ago, actually in December, they discovered a tunnel, so-called tunnel, reaching out of the synagogue to a mikveh. According to the way it was covered in Newsweek yesterday, they said a construction worker discovered it spanning from under the women's section of the synagogue to a mikveh, a Jewish ritual cleansing bath on the corner of Union Street. And the New York Post wrote, it was apparently designed to reach an abandoned women's mikveh. So here is what I know that I want to set the record straight about. First of all, it did not reach a women's mikveh. It reached an abandoned men's mikveh. So a mikveh is a ritual bath. Famously, women go to the mikveh in Orthodox Judaism after their menstrual cycle as a kind of ritual purification process. And a lot of people know about that. There are quite a few videos on YouTube where people show inside the mikvahs and discuss what it means to them. But actually, what's not very well known is that in Hasidic Judaism, many men go to the mikveh as well. If you look at my video of the Eve of Shabbos, one of the things you'll see is on the Eve of Shabbos, a lot of men are running around with wet side locks. And that's because, especially before Shabbos, to purify themselves for Shabbos, men will immerse themselves in the mikveh, which is this little tiny pool of water made of well water, spring water, and you have to immerse yourself completely in order to go through this purification process. And the men will do it sometimes. Some will do it daily. Some will do it just for Shabbos. And so a men's mikveh is also part of the possibilities of what a mikveh can be in the Orthodox Jewish community. So one of the problems with the way this story is being framed and the way it sounds is like it sounds like a story of men digging a tunnel to lead to a women's mikvah. And on Reddit, there are all of these speculations about, were there a bunch of pervy men who dug this long tunnel so that they can peek into the women's mikvah so that they can bathe? And people were making references to famous movies where men were peeking into women bathing innocently while the men were extremely inappropriate. This story lends itself to so much insinuation, but if you get the record straight, that what this tunnel led to was a defunct men's mikvah, I think it gets a lot less sexy, and also it starts to explain a little more of what is actually happening. Also, as far as I understand, there is a campaign within Chabad to expand the synagogue 770. So if you go to the website, expand 770 Inc., you'll see pictures of their vision of what they hope to do with the synagogue. There's a lot of complaints that the synagogue's too small. It is an extremely important synagogue. There's so much traffic going through it. And by the way, there's a ton of footage on YouTube about 770 that you can find pretty much all the content about Hasidic Judaism. Most of it is going to be about 770 if it's showing you a synagogue. So there's an effort there's a part of the community that wants to expand 770. And it seems that a bunch of hot-headed young boys tried to take matters in their own hands by excavating sort of holes to connect 770 with that abandoned space. So they didn't actually dig a tunnel. It's more like they dug out the crawl space connecting to the building next to it. You're in Brooklyn, buildings are very close to each other, and so it was kind of an attempt to expand 770. That's what I know of this story. So after there was sort of a schism within 770. Hold on just a second. So there's sort of a schism within Chabad movement where the people who want to expand it and the people who think it needs to go through, and the people who are fighting on the other side, there seems to be a court battle involved, are warring, and this is what led to young boys taking matters into their own hands. And then when the official administration tried to fill the excavated part in order to make sure that the building is not destabilized, this whole kerfuffle happened. Hot-headed, young, very pious Hasidic men fought to stop the cement installment, and then we had that circus that ensued that was now much publicized and led to some arrests. So here's something else I want to tell you before I read your comments. This story is about Chabad. Chabad, or Chabad Lubavitch, or you might know it as Lubavitch, is one Hasidic group. Hasidic Judaism is a movement of groups, or I use on my channel the term sect. Different sects sometimes take on different flavors, different styles. They have different approaches. I cover the Hasidic community of Williamsburg, and to a degree, Borough Park, Monsey, Kiryas Joel. Those, especially Williamsburg and Kiryas Joel, don't have really a connection with Chabad. Chabad, I would say, of all the Hasidic groups, is the most outlier. While there are many groups in Williamsburg, there is pretty much no presence of Chabad in Williamsburg. Chabad is so different that if I walk through Williamsburg, I can recognize a Chabadnik, while I can't recognize if someone is Vizhnitz or Pupa or Satmar. They look so similar. These sects are so like each other that I can group them under one umbrella. For me personally, my own work, I usually categorize Chabad as distinct, and then the groups that are in Williamsburg as under one umbrella of Ungarische groups, Hungarian groups, or Williamsburg groups. And then there are some additional Polish groups, Galiciana groups that are in Borough Park. I don't feel comfortable speaking for Chabad. I don't really cover Chabad in my work. I can tell you what I learned about the synagogue, but I don't see myself as an expert of Chabad. I do feel like through my experience in this community, I do understand what it is for hot-headed religious boys to do silly things and get into altercations with the authorities. That has happened in Satmar as well when there was the schism. But generally, to me, Chabad is a world apart. One of the important reasons why Chabad is different is they do outreach. They go out into the world and they try to bring in outsiders. So if you've ever been stopped by a Hasidic looking Jew who said, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?" and wanted to give you something, then that's Chabad. And that experience of going out into the world, interacting with the world, changes fundamentally what a Hasidic group is. For instance, I'll give you an example. I recently posted a clip of Hasidic women talking about head shaving. They are not Chabad, and they self-deprecatingly and I think very endearingly laugh at the fact that they don't know why the custom is practiced. To me, that is a very that is not an unintelligent answer. That is a very honest answer, and that speaks to the fact that this doesn't matter to these women. It also speaks to the fact that these women have not been exposed to feminist ideas in which you have to have a satisfying rationale for why things are done. So because the these women have not been exposed to feminism, the very flavor of the Hasidic groups that have not had the intense interactions with outsiders is very different. They will speak about their religion differently. They will see their religion differently. They will experience a self-consciousness about their faith very differently than those who go out into the world, have to defend their faith, have to market their faith, and have to interact with the outside world. To me, Chabad was always very foreign. I'm in Prospect Park all the time, and there were these young Chabad girls who ask me if I'm Jewish, and they want to give me candles, and I have my own. And I used to look at them and think, what the heck are you doing? Nowadays, I have become more maybe affectionate towards them, but I've always seen them, I think, as outsiders. That's because their outreach to me makes them so different from the groups that I come from, the groups that I cover, which is Satmar and similar groups like Viznitz, Klosenberg, Pupa. Um, I could say Wien in Williamsburg. So this is essentially why I try in my work not to cover Chabad. There is so much work on Chabad out there. There's so much media on Chabad. Anytime there's a story about the Hasidic community, Chabad, which is very savvy about telling its own story, about interacting with the world, will step in and say, we are the Hasidic Jews and we will explain what's going on. A lot of people will say, I have a Hasidic friend, so I know what's going on in the Hasidic community. And I think to myself, well, Hasidic Chabad or Hasidic Satmar, because those are very, very different. In fact, there is a book by a woman who I won't name because I'm not really a very big fan of that book. It's a nonfiction story about the Williamsburg Hasidic community that is written by a Hasidic woman. But that Hasidic woman is from Chabad, from overseas. And a lot of the reviewers say, wow, this book is amazing. It gave me so much insight into this woman's world. But to me, this woman is not an insider. As a Chabad overseas woman, you are not one to speak of the Hasidic community as an insider. You can do research and write a wonderful novel, but she is not speaking as an insider because to me, Chabad and the groups in Williamsburg are very different. And I try, usually, barring today, to stay in my lane and not to speak of what I don't know. And oftentimes I feel like this isn't done everywhere, and the perception of all Hasidic Jews are dominated by the narratives put out by Chabad. So that is a little bit of the distinction between what I focus on, which so far has been on the Williamsburg and Borough Park communities predominantly. Also Israel. I've been to Israel and Bnei Brak, the community there. And I'm going to be publishing something about the Catskills and the communities there. I do hope to do interviews with Chabadniks, to visit 770, to bring you more things from there. But I just wanted to explain why it is so important for me to create that distinction between what I cover, which is not Chabad, and what you'll usually see about the Hasidic community, which will very often be about Chabad. Okay, so now I am going to see some of your comments. William says opinions on the mattresses. Yes, okay, so I don't know what those mattresses are in a high chair. I think I was really bothered by anti-Semites on Twitter who are insinuating some kind of crazy plot. You're dealing with an abandoned piece of real estate. If you look at the footage of what it looks like in that crawl space and in the mikveh, it's disgusting. It's like dumped full of trash, including what seems to be men's clothing. So it's a garbagey space. Who knows why people were dumping trash there? I would not make assumptions. I would not assume that there was more than trash. I mean, what are people assuming was happening except that trash was dumped in a space that looks extremely, extremely trashy? I think the whole story is blown completely out of proportion, that boys take matters in their own hands, kind of a sports team energy, a rogue actor's energies. Is it such a big deal? So Lauren says, but they are only outreaching to fellow Jews that are not observant as themselves. Yes, that's correct. Chabad only reaches out to fellow Jews. However, Satmar reaches out to nobody. Satmar has an attitude of, if you're not born into it, it's not for you. Don't bother. It's too much. It's very intense. We live our way. You live your way. So there's a very different attitude from Satmar. And a lot of Satmars look at Chabad as in, what are they doing? It makes it sounds very mind-boggling that they're reaching out to other Jews who were born into often those secular Jews were born into a secular way of life, and to Satmar, it's like, let them live the way they were born into, or it's not our job to change them. Ivana says, Dear Frida, this news is not well received here in Serbia. I'm afraid it is presented in a way that leaves space for dark insinuation, and people reading and commenting are going for it. That is the crux of the problem. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that this is a completely overblown, ridiculous non-story about boys digging out holes in walls. Very fervent boys. You have to understand Chabad, because they bring in outsiders. They have the zeal of the convert, people who really, really believe very strongly in things. Also, an important thing that I haven't touched on that I need to talk about is that within Chabad, there's the schism between Meshachisten and non-Meshachisten. Meshachisten are those who believe that their Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was sort of the Messiah, and that even though he passed away, he's not exactly passed away. He's sort of in another dimension. And the Meshachisten are very controversial. They mostly have taken over the synagogue. They are in 770, and they have the fight, although they don't have ownership. To them, 770 means a great deal. And the fight here is between the Meshachisten, who believe that 770, correct me if I'm wrong, that's how I understand it. Definitely, the Meshachisten here are the outliers. They're sort of the extremists who are acting in this rogue way, and the establishment of Chabad, the official Chabad apparatus, is extremely against it, and they are scrambling to try to disown and criticize the actions of the rogue extremists. So there's that sort of internal schism where maybe a small percent of Chabad are Meshachisten, and the vast majority are against what these Meshachisten stand for. And Meshachisten are often very fervent, very, very, very radical in their beliefs. Hello, Sandra from the Netherlands. Sandra says, Chabad is strong here because we have such a small community, and they sent us Chabadniks raves, but the old people don't like them. What are raves? Chabadniks raves or Rebbes? Is that a typo? Um, John says, Bells do outreach. Secular Jews can book a Shabbos experience with them. Really? I might do it then. Please tell me more. Um, Michelle says, the most important thing is treating the poor, sick, and elderly with kindness and respect. I don't know where this is coming from, but I very much agree. John Doe says, I heard that they wanted to expand the building, wanted the building to collapse so they would expand. I did not hear the second part, but I definitely heard of the first part. Any other comments? Yes, Sandra, that was a typo. Any other comments that any of you wanted to share? Um, Again, I'm not an authority on Chabad. If you want to hear more about the Chabad internal story between the Meshachisten and the everyday Chabad people, if you're interested in correcting anything I said, please leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. I really, really feel like in an age of so much media, everyone is rushing to get the next story, to get the most clicks. We take every little story and we expand it into this enormous scandal. I don't feel like the word tunnel maybe is intentionally used to insinuate a Gaza-esque kind of underground network. It's really just a sort of crawl space between buildings if you look closely to it. So I think it's important to try to do away with the fluff and look at the full story. So it is early morning in California. It is also early morning in New York-ish, but I mean it's 10 a.m. early enough for me, but I'm gonna be heading out to the airport in just a minute. Thank you so much, DJ Butch, a Chabadnik, for your comment. And Elizabeth from Tzafat. I love to the all of you and Tzafat in particular. And good morning, Cheryl. Let me see if I have. Lena says I was part of the Crown Heights community and Chabad, and I come here to make sense of what's going on. I think it is Chabad that should have made things more clear about what's going on. They were so quick, the official establishment, to clarify that they are not okay with the extremists, to quickly disown the extremist actions, to loudly decry the altercations with the cops. They were so eager to not sound like the actions from this rogue extremist fringe is them, that in the haste, I feel like they didn't take the time to own what is happening by explaining this is not Gaza-esque tunnels. This is not some kind of, I don't know, people living with mattresses so they can peek into a women's mikvah. This is a completely abandoned men's ritual bath, and that was connected in an attempt to take matters in their own hands and expand the synagogue. And I think that's the bottom line that is getting lost in this very dramatic news story. Well, I'm glad, Sandra, you caught alive. To blame Bahram from Tzafat feels like Lashon Hara. I don't know why we're blaming Bahram from Tzafat. I have no idea. Okay. Lastly, Rona works for Chabad in Vienna, Austria. And last comment, it's New York. There were all kinds of basement and crawl spaces built all over. That is true. So I'm gonna get going now. I thank you all for joining. Please leave comments, share your thoughts. I will be monitoring the comments, and I will be heading out to the airport shortly. So bye everyone. Have a good one, and thanks again.